I thought my wife was having an affair. I was right. But what I didn't know was, she was using the affair to hide something much worse. I wasn't a good husband. Let's start there. Not abusive. Not a cheater. Just absent. Functional, but absent. I paid the bills. I showed up to the dinner table. I asked about her day, sometimes even listened. But emotionally, I was a closed system. Sealed off. I gave what I thought was enough. She used to tell me she felt like she was loving a ghost. That I could be in the room but miles away. I thought she was being dramatic. I thought showing up physically counted for something. It does. Just not enough. Haley married me anyway. We'd been together 8 years. Married for 6. Lived in a quiet neighborhood with ugly mailboxes and fake smiles. Everything about our life looked fine from the outside. And maybe that's what made it so easy to ignore when the cracks started showing. The first time I noticed something was off, it was small. She turned her phone over when I walked in the room. She never used to do that. No one does it unless they're hiding something. She smiled too quickly. Said it was just a work message. I didn't argue. I logged it. After that, it got easier to see. New perfume. Different sleep schedule. One morning she came out of the shower wearing a towel I didn't recognize. Said it was from Target. I hadn't seen a Target bag in weeks. Again, I said nothing. Just filed it away. People assume betrayal is loud. It isn't. It's quiet. Efficient. Like a leak behind drywall. You only notice once the damage is already done. I started tracking her patterns, not obsessively, just enough to notice the changes. Fridays became unpredictable. She used to get home by 6. Then it was 6:30. Then 7. Excuses got vaguer. Traffic. Meetings. Drinks with Paige. Paige had moved to Denver 2 months earlier. I didn't ask questions. I wanted her to get comfortable. I wanted to see how far she'd take it. And maybe, if I'm being honest, I wanted a reason. A clean one. Something she couldn't talk her way out of. So I followed her. It was a Wednesday. She said she had a late meeting. I knew where she was going before she even left the driveway. She met him at a place we used to go, quiet, unremarkable. The kind of place people choose when they don't want to be seen. He was older than I expected. Confident in a rehearsed kind of way. Not conventionally attractive, but polished. They didn't touch. Didn't kiss. Just sat close. Talked low. She smiled like she used to smile with me. That was enough. I drove home before she did. She came in around 10:20. Kissed my cheek. Said the meeting ran long. I looked at her and said, "Long day." She nodded. Exhausting. I told her to go take a bath. She smiled, relieved. Like she'd gotten away with something. Like I was still the man who didn't pay attention. She was wrong. I noticed everything. I just chose not to stop it. Because I wasn't interested in confrontation. I was interested in the truth. And the truth needs space to grow. It needs time. So I let her keep lying. Let her feel safe. Let her fall deeper. And when it's time, I'll ask her one question. Nothing dramatic. Just, how long did you think I didn't know? A week after I followed Haley, I changed the locks on our front door. Not so she couldn't get in, she still had her key. I just wanted to feel the difference. Like something had shifted. Like there was now an inside and an outside to her life. And I was choosing which side she belonged to. She didn't notice. She came home that night, turned the key, walked in like nothing was wrong. Asked what I wanted for dinner. I said I wasn't hungry. The man from the restaurant, his name was Daniel. I knew that much. She saved his number under Marcy Yoga. I suppose that was meant to be clever. Or lazy. She'd never been to a yoga class in her life. I didn't confront her. I did something else. I sent Daniel a text. Not from my number, of course. I used a burner app. Made it look like someone anonymous, maybe a mutual friend. The message was short. Her husband knows. He's not who she thinks he is. Then I waited. Daniel went quiet for 2 days. No texts. No calls. No secret meetups. Haley grew restless. She kept checking her phone, frowning, staring out the window longer than usual. On the third night, she went for a drive. Said she needed air. I let her go. An hour later, she came back looking pale. She didn't speak to me. Just went upstairs and took a shower. Stood in there for almost 40 minutes. Water running. Steam pouring under the door. When she came out, she looked like she'd been crying. But she played it off. Told me she'd fallen asleep in the tub. I told her she should be more careful. You never know what you'll wake up to, I said. She flinched, just barely. That was the first time I knew she was afraid. The next twist came from Daniel. I hadn't expected it, honestly. I assumed he'd back off. Most men do when they realize a husband's in the picture. But Daniel, apparently, had a different tactic. He showed up to our house. Middle of a Saturday afternoon. I was mowing the lawn. Haley was inside, supposedly organizing the pantry. He walked right up the driveway and introduced himself. Daniel Cross, he said. We met at the homeowners meeting last year, right? We had not. But I shook his hand. Right. You're in the tan house on Birch? That's me, he smiled. Confident. A little too confident. Just wanted to say hi. Been meaning to connect with the neighbors more. I looked at him. Then at the second floor window, where I knew Haley was watching. Then back at him. You should come in, I said. He blinked. Sure. So I let him in. Set him down in our living room. Offered him a drink. Bourbon. He accepted. Haley didn't come downstairs. We made small talk. He asked what I did for work. I gave him a version of the truth. He said he worked in consulting, another lie. I already knew he was a gym manager in a part of town Haley used to call depressing. The irony made my teeth hurt. Then he looked around and said something that almost made me laugh. This is a beautiful house. You're lucky. I looked at him, and for a moment, I wanted to say everything. That I knew. That he was sitting in the home of the woman he was screwing. That I'd watched them. That I'd seen the way she laughed like she was 19 again. But I didn't. Instead, I said, it looks better from the outside. He paused. Drank. Then he said, can I be honest with you? I leaned back. Always. He looked toward the stairs, then back at me. I don't know what she's told you, or if she's told you anything at all, but I'm not trying to wreck anyone's life. I didn't come here for that. So he wasn't pretending. He'd come here to confess. To what? Clear his conscience? I stayed silent. She told me you two were basically done, he said. That it was over, but you hadn't made it official. That you didn't care. I nodded slowly. And you believe that? He hesitated. I did. Until I got that message. Then I started to wonder if I was being used. I poured him another drink. Of course you were being used, I said. He stared at me. Don't take it personally, I added. She uses everyone. It's just instinct. He didn't respond. Just sat there, processing, trying to figure out if I was threatening him or warning him. I stood up. I think you should go now. He did. Later that night, Haley finally said something. We were brushing our teeth. She glanced at me in the mirror and asked, like it was a joke, what did you and the neighbor talk about? I spat, rinsed, and looked at her. Which one? She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. The next morning, she deleted Marcy Yoga from her phone. I backed up everything before she did it. You see, I wasn't just watching anymore. I was collecting. I had the texts, the photos, the location data, the hotel receipts emailed to her personal inbox. I had voice recordings. Not because I needed proof. I already had that. I needed leverage. Because I wasn't planning on confronting her. I was planning on replacing her. And the best part? She had no idea who I was replacing her with. Daniel came to my house and shook my hand. I thought I was in control. But that handshake, that was the moment everything started to unravel. 2 days after Daniel left my house, Haley started acting like someone who'd seen a ghost and decided to marry it. She cleaned, cooked, asked if I wanted to watch a movie with her, not beside her. She even tried to initiate love. That one caught me off guard. Not because I was shocked by the offer, but because of how scripted it felt. Like she'd read somewhere that guilt burns calories and decided to sweat it out. I didn't touch her. I let her sit in the silence I'd built around us. Let her fold laundry in rooms I wasn't in. Let her call me babe again like the word still had value. It didn't. I watched it slide off her tongue like wet paper. This was her version of a retreat, pulling back from the edge, trying to secure her position before the house of cards caved in. And me? I watched her shuffle the deck and thought I knew every card. That was my mistake. I still believed I was running the game. Daniel didn't text her again. Not that I saw. She kept her phone close, but didn't smile at it anymore. Didn't hide it. She was too busy pretending to be a wife again. But something about her performance was off. It wasn't just guilt. It was fear. Not of me, but of something I hadn't yet named. Then came the email. It landed in my personal inbox at 3:06 a.m., sent from a temporary address. No subject, just a short message. You're focusing on the wrong threat. Look closer. At first, I thought it was Daniel. Maybe a last-ditch warning. Maybe he was feeling brave again. But there was something off about the timing. Too clean. Too surgical. Like it was placed with precision, not desperation. I didn't respond. But I did start digging again. I pulled up the backups from Haley's deleted texts. Cross-referenced her calendar with Daniel's name. It was mostly wiped. She'd gotten smarter, or maybe she did help. The night Daniel came over, I remembered thinking he seemed too confident. Like he wasn't nervous enough for a man facing down the husband of the woman he was sleeping with. And now, with the email, it clicked. Daniel had played a role. A specific role. He hadn't come to confess. He hadn't come to explain. He came to redirect. But I didn't see that yet. Not fully. I saw shadows. I didn't know what cast them. So I did what I always do when I feel something slipping. I took control of something smaller. I called an old friend of mine, Kate. We'd known each other in college. Briefly dated. It fizzled before it lit. But we'd kept in touch. A few drinks here and there over the years. She worked in cybersecurity now. One of those people who could find your deleted search history from 2011 if you gave her an hour and a glass of wine. I sent her what I had, the email, the timing, the burner number Daniel had used. I told her I thought I was being baited, maybe watched. She texted back 2 hours later, "You're not paranoid. This is calculated. Someone's covering tracks, not leaving them." It confirmed what I already suspected, but it still didn't tell me why. That night, I asked Haley if she was happy. She blinked. "What do you mean?" "In general. With me. With this marriage." She hesitated, then said, "I think we lost each other for a while. But I want to fix that." There was no warmth in her voice, just the dull echo of self-preservation. I told her I'd be working late the next day, that I needed space to think. What I actually did was drive to Daniel's gym, parked across the street, and watched for 2 hours. He never came out. I checked the schedule posted in the window. He wasn't working that day. No shifts. He was always working Thursdays, according to his calendar, the one I hacked last week. So where was he? Back home. Haley didn't ask where I'd been. That's when I knew something else was wrong. She was always cautious, always trying to read me. But now she wasn't watching me at all. Because she didn't need to. Because someone else was. That was the first real crack in the glass. Later that week, I found Daniel's car parked 2 blocks away from our street. Not in front of a house. Just tucked between 2 sedans like he'd planned to vanish into the background. I walked past it slowly. Noticed the dust on the rear windshield. Someone had drawn a smiley face in the grime. It wasn't there 2 days ago. It didn't mean anything. Not technically. But it felt like someone had reached into my life and tagged it. Like a predator marking territory. I went home and looked at Haley for a long time that night. She was folding laundry again, humming to herself. Calm, rehearsed. And then it hit me. Daniel hadn't disappeared. He hadn't backed off. He had embedded himself deeper, moved in closer. Not physically, psychologically. He was still in our house, just not in the way I'd expected. Because now, every time I opened a drawer, I questioned if he'd seen it. Every time Haley kissed my cheek, I wondered if she was thinking of him. He didn't need to text her anymore. He didn't need to show up. He had already planted the seed. The affair wasn't a secret anymore. It was a weapon, and I still didn't know how many times he'd used it or what he'd left behind. But I kept pretending, kept acting like I was in control, like I had the plan. Because the only thing worse than betrayal is letting them know they've beaten you. And if Daniel wanted me to dance, I'd do it. Right up until I cut the music. I thought I had time. Time to gather more evidence. Time to dig deeper into Daniel. Time to figure out what exactly they were trying to hide from me. Why the messages dried up. Why Haley suddenly stopped being afraid. Why Daniel played the neighbor card like a man who knew more than he let on. I thought I was building towards something. And I was. Just not my plan. It started with a manila envelope. No return address. No postage. Just placed inside our mailbox, tucked behind a grocery circular like it had been hand-delivered. I almost didn't open it. I assumed it was a bluff, maybe something from Daniel meant to spook me. But the weight of it told me otherwise. Inside were photos. Not of Haley. Of me. The first one was taken through my office window, me sitting at my desk, back turned, typing. The second was outside a coffee shop 2 towns over. I was meeting with Kate, my cybersecurity friend. The timestamp matched last Thursday. The third was me in my car, parked across from Daniel's gym. Engine off. Face visible. There were 6 photos total. All recent. All in places I thought I was alone. No notes. No threats. Just surveillance. It stopped me cold. Until that moment, I had believed I was the one watching. The observer. The one setting traps. But someone else had been watching me. Closer. Longer. And that someone wasn't Daniel. The next clue came later that night, when Haley made a mistake. She left her laptop open. She never does that. Not anymore. It was probably habit. She was distracted, on the phone with her sister, or pretending to be. Her voice carried down the hall, laughter too precise. I waited until the water started running in the bathroom before I sat down at the screen. No password. She hadn't cleared her tabs. One of them was a private Google Drive folder. The title was an acronym I didn't recognize, ARCH. I opened it. It was full of recordings. Audio clips. MP3s. Most of them labeled with dates. I clicked the most recent one. The static hit first, then my voice. You're not paranoid. This is calculated. Someone's covering tracks, not leaving them. Kate's text to me. I had read it aloud in the garage while pacing, venting into my voice memo app. Alone. I had never sent it. Never played it back. Somehow, Haley had it. I opened another file. This one was Daniel's voice, taken from our living room the day he came to visit. I didn't come here for that, he was saying. She told me you two were basically done. A third file. Haley herself. On the phone. Laughing. He thinks he's playing us. It's almost sweet. There were at least 40 files. Conversations I'd had. Places I'd been. Snippets of me talking to myself, to others. Even a few ambient recordings shuffling, chairs, doors creaking. My entire campaign to uncover the truth had been recorded from the other side. She knew. She had known everything. Not just about Daniel. About me. My movements. My questions. Even Kate. And suddenly it all made sense. The fake guilt. The laundry folding. The love she dangled like bait. She hadn't been trying to recover the marriage. She was managing the narrative. I was the one being lured. Not into a trap, but into a false sense of control. She needed me distracted, focused on Daniel, focused on the affair, because there was something else I hadn't seen, something bigger. I heard the water shut off. I backed away from the laptop, careful not to disturb the trackpad. I moved through the hallway like nothing had happened, sat on the edge of the bed, scrolled through my phone, looked calm. She walked in wrapped in a towel, hair wet, makeup removed. The same version of her I'd seen 1,000 times. But now I knew it was a mask. She smiled. "You okay?" I nodded. "Just tired." She slid into bed beside me, rested her head on my shoulder like nothing was wrong. And in that moment, I realized something terrifying. Daniel wasn't the architect. He was the alibi. She used him, used their affair as a distraction, a sacrifice, something I could chase, investigate, punish, something that made me feel like the strategist. Meanwhile, she'd been gathering leverage, the manila envelope, the recordings, my meetings, my behavior. She wasn't afraid of me confronting her. She was preparing for me to leave, and she wanted to win the divorce before I even filed. Because this wasn't just about infidelity. This was an emotional drift. It was strategy. Legal, financial, reputational. If I left her now, she'd already have the story: paranoid husband, erratic behavior, surveillance, emotional neglect, secret meetings with an ex. She had receipts. She had context. She had my voice. And I had, what? A few photos of her with Daniel? A gut feeling? I was being outplayed. Quietly. Efficiently. I fell asleep next to her that night, pretending I hadn't seen anything. Pretending I was still one move ahead. But for the first time since this started, I wasn't sure I knew how the game ended. I didn't sleep much after that night. How could I? I'd been living in the dark, convinced I was hunting a snake. Turns out I was in the cage with something far smarter and more venomous than I'd realized. But that's the thing about predators. The clever ones don't gloat. They catalog. They plan for every outcome. They let you underestimate them, because arrogance is a loud mistake, and they listen for it. So I kept my mouth shut. I didn't confront Haley. I didn't change my routine. I acted like a man losing interest in a failing marriage. It wasn't hard. But inside, something had shifted. I wasn't watching her anymore. I was studying her. Looking not just for proof, but for pattern. The rhythm behind the mask. And I found it in the least likely place, a library. It started when Kate, my friend in cybersecurity, called me from a burner line. She never did that unless it was serious. "I backtracked the metadata on a few of those audio files you found," she said. "She's not just using her phone or laptop. I already figured as much. The quality on some of the recordings was too clean. She's using cloud syncing through a remote server. Something encrypted. Corporate-level stuff. She doesn't work in tech. She doesn't need to. Someone else set it up for her." "Daniel?" "No," Kate said. "Not unless Daniel is also logging in from Montreal." That stopped me. Montreal. Yeah. The IP trace bounced between a few locations, but most consistently from Quebec. Different name, too. Not hers. "You ever heard of an Aaron Kessler?" I hadn't. Kate sent me the server logs. Login times. File transfers. A couple cached email previews from the recovery inbox. And that's when I saw it. One of the messages was a receipt. A small purchase from a used bookstore in Montreal. Date matched one of the upload times. The title of the book? The Psychology of Custody, Framing Parental Fitness. I froze. Haley and I didn't have kids. We never wanted them, or at least, that's what I thought. I went down a rabbit hole that night. Looked up the bookstore. Tracked their catalog. Confirmed the purchase. Then I searched public birth records in Quebec. It took 2 hours. And then I found her. Aaron Kessler. 32. No criminal record. No property ownership. One dependent. A 5-year-old boy named Noah. Same birthday as Haley's nephew. But Haley doesn't have a nephew. Not really. That's what she told people. That her sister had a son. That she visited him sometimes. Sent money for daycare. But she never showed pictures. Never posted about him. Never let me meet him. And now, I knew why. It wasn't her sister's kid. It was hers. The photos weren't public, but I found one through a friend of a friend's tagged Instagram. A blurry image at a park in Quebec. A woman from behind pushing a stroller. The caption read, "Look who we ran into, Aaron plus Noah. Still such a sweetheart." I zoomed in. Even from behind, I knew that was Haley. Different haircut. No makeup. But unmistakably her. I sat there staring at the screen for maybe 20 minutes, trying to understand what I was looking at. Not just a lie. A life. She had a whole identity I'd never known. A child. A separate version of herself she'd buried beneath the surface of our marriage. And suddenly, everything made a different kind of sense. The files. The recordings. The cold precision of her moves. She wasn't just protecting herself from a divorce. She was protecting him. Daniel wasn't her endgame. He was the decoy. A fire she lit to keep my attention off the real matchbox. That's when the new plan started forming. Because now I had leverage. Not the kind I'd been chasing: texts, affairs, humiliation. Something quieter. More dangerous. A second identity. I didn't go to her right away. I waited. I let the days blur. Let her think she was still safe. That she was still running the show. I even let her find my own burner phone one morning, tucked under a seat in my car. She didn't say anything. Just took it. It disappeared from the house later that day. She assumed I was sloppy. She assumed she was still winning. That's the thing about liars. They only believe two things matter: control and exposure. Keep control, avoid exposure. But they always forget about timing. Because sometimes, all you need is one truth delivered at the right moment to shatter everything they've built. I called Kate again. "Can you spoof a lawyer's office number? Make it look official?" "Absolutely," she said. "Who's getting served?" "Not yet," I told her. "First, I need a delivery sent to an address in Montreal. With a letter. And a photo." "What photo?" "The one of Haley. With Noah." There was a pause. "And the letter?" "It just needs one sentence," I said. "Does he know you exist?" I sent it anonymously. No return address. No contact info. Just that question and the image, slipped into the hands of someone whose life I suspected had been built on the same kind of omissions I'd swallowed for years. I don't know if he'll reach out. I don't know if he'll care. But I do know this. Haley's life has always depended on compartmentalization. This was me kicking down the wall between our lives. And I hadn't even started with the legal angle yet. Because now I had something more powerful than revenge. I had curiosity. And I knew sooner or later that kid's father, or someone close to him, was going to come asking questions. Questions Haley wouldn't be ready for. Because secrets rot fast once the air hits them. And she'd buried this one deep. But I was already digging. I used to think revenge was something loud. Something sharp and final. A confrontation in a kitchen. A screaming match in a courtroom. A name dragged through the mud until there was nothing left to clean. But I was wrong. The most effective revenge isn't loud. It's silent. Surgical. It doesn't destroy you. It erases you. Quietly. One thread at a time. And that's exactly what I did to Haley. The letter I sent to Montreal made it to its destination. I know because 3 days later, she cracked. It happened on a Sunday. She got a call while we were sitting on the porch. She stood up, walked inside, and didn't come out for over an hour. When she did, her face was pale. Hollow. She didn't ask me anything. Didn't accuse me. But something had shifted behind her eyes. That cool confidence? Gone. And that's how I knew it had worked. The photo I sent wasn't explicit. Just enough for someone in that boy's life, maybe the father, maybe a friend of the family, to start connecting dots. Start asking questions Haley didn't want to answer. I never heard back from them. I didn't need to. The silence was proof enough. Because from that moment on, Haley stopped pretending. No more folded laundry. No more guilt love. No more cold affection masked as reconciliation. She just drifted, day by day, like a person waiting for the hammer to fall. And I made sure it did, legally. While she spiraled in private, I played the long game. Kate helped me build the case. Not about the affair that was the smoke. I went after the fire. Identity fraud. Tax inconsistencies. IP activity linking her to devices registered under Aaron Kessler. Child support money transferred through a ghost account. Leverage stacked neatly into a single digital folder. And then I went to a lawyer. Not one of those bombastic courtroom types. I chose someone quiet, experienced in sensitive dissolutions. Someone who knew how to take apart a marriage without leaving a mess behind. We filed. I didn't confront her when I did it. Just left the envelope on the kitchen counter and took my coffee out back. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just sat there, reading it like a death notice. She knew there was no way to fight it. Not without exposing the life she'd buried in Montreal. The child. The second identity. The men she'd manipulated to keep it all afloat. And Daniel? He tried to reach out once. Sent an email from a new address. Just one sentence. I didn't know about the kid. I believed him. Maybe he didn't know. Maybe he really thought he was just the affair. The distraction. The convenient pawn. But that didn't make him innocent. Just disposable. I never responded. As for Haley, she tried to negotiate. She offered me the house, the car, a no-fault agreement, anything to keep the rest hidden. I agreed to every term. On paper, it looked like mercy. In reality, it was a transaction. She kept custody of her secret. I kept my reputation, clean, intact, and scathed. I didn't drag her through court. I didn't publish the photos. I didn't expose her to her employer or her friends or her family. I didn't need to. I just made it clear. If she ever came near me again, if she so much as whispered my name in the wrong direction, her entire second life would be up for public consumption. She understood. We finalized the divorce and mediation. Quietly. No arguments. No witnesses. I walked out of that room a free man. No debts. No chaos. No ties. I sold the house 2 months later. Took a remote consulting gig in another state. Different pace. Different air. 1-bedroom apartment. No trace of the life I left behind. Some people would call that running. I call it peace. Because here's the truth. Haley was never just a cheating wife. She was an architect. A strategist. She built an entire system of lies with me at the center, designed to protect the version of herself she cared about most, the one no one was supposed to know. And Daniel? He wasn't the mastermind. He was a mask, a distraction she let me chase while she recorded every move I made, just in case she needed to bury me later. But she forgot one thing. You don't need to be the smartest person in the room. You just need to be the one who sees the game for what it is. I never outsmarted Haley. I just stopped playing her game. And when I did, she lost everything she was trying to protect. Last I heard, she moved to Montreal permanently. Maybe to be near her son. Maybe to disappear. I don't know. And I don't care. I don't think about her anymore. Not out of bitterness. Just out of discipline. Because peace isn't the absence of conflict. It's knowing what not to resurrect. And I've already buried her twice. Once in my marriage. And once when I chose not to burn her world down now. Even though I could have. Thanks for watching. If this story pulled you in, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss the next confession. Until next time, take care and watch who you trust.